Hi there, comrades. The purpose of today's video is to give us an idea of how the maps look visually in Civilization 6 Gathering Storm. So what I did was I ran several games and I pulled 4 examples for each map type that I considered would be interesting. All of these maps are cylindrical, so the ones that wrap around along the east-west axis. As I'm not a fan of non-wrapping maps like the inland sea or tilted axis, um, I'm also going to skip the Earth-related maps as those do not need any explanation in my opinion. So let's start with the first set. I want to get it out of the way. And these are the 6-armed snowflake and the 4-leaf clover. These are pretty straightforward maps. They begin on the balanced regions. It's just the clover has 4 and the snowflake has 6 of them. And the players play towards the center. The regions are very identical, but it gives you an idea. It got a couple of islands. It gives you an idea about the terrain. Obviously, the darker regions are the forests, and the lighter regions are the plains or grasslands. You have some deserts there. This one is kind of funky. It has tundra towards the middle, whereas this one has a more traditional placement of tundra, north and south. These games, these maps are intended for team play, maybe dual type of setup, multiplayer, and they all look the same pretty much. Now, I thought maybe we could go from the maps that have the most land to the maps that have the least land. And so one of the first sets is the lakes. The lakes, I feel like, well, at least visually, to me, seems like the type of map that has the most land. And you can see that these 4 examples show you like the lakes are pretty small relatively, right? They're like 3, 4 tiles wide, maybe. Except for this one, this is the only map that I pulled that has deep ocean tile type of lakes. Um, Several of them. So it looks a little different from the rest of them, but it gives you an idea. The next map that is, I feel like has most land is Highlands. So Highlands is a large region dominated by hills and mountains. I mean, we can't see them on the map, but you can imagine the hills, and you can see how it looks very similar to lakes. Very similar. I mean, it's almost like this weird, well, the odd lake example is pretty much what the highland maps look like. So the highland maps are the land ratio is much higher than water. Now, the next set that I think shows a high percentage or share of a land is Seven Seas. So Seven Seas is a cylindrical map as well. And you can see in this example that it's pretty much like a Pangea that is cut up with bodies of water, right? So, I mean, this one has the seas connected. A lot of them are connected, kind of. So you can, this is the type of map where you can build canals, right? And connect your seas. And if you're Portugal, for example, it could be challenging, right? I mean, this map, this example shows you like a one giant sea almost, which is connected with the rest of them. More like a Mediterranean setup than the like 7 separated seas. The next map that I wanted to look at was Primordial, and this is from the early time and predictable continents and islands, obviously with a bunch of volcanoes and whatnot. But you can tell this is like kind of a fractal splintered type of map. It's almost like a Pangea, but it's chopped up, right? In this case, it's a bunch of islands, small continents. This one is like a Pangea, but also with a different, maybe a couple of continents almost. So it's really goes through, true to its description when it's unpredictable. But it gives you an idea that it's plenty of water, and also plenty of land, which might or might not be easy to navigate and explore. Now, Continents and Islands is one of my favorite maps to play, actually. I've been playing Continents traditionally, but I think this is much more fun to play. You can tell that this example, for example, at the bottom has two large continents, so it seems like it's a continents map with a bunch of islands. But other ones, they consist of like three continents, right? Two large ones and one small one. And this example here almost shows you like three relatively similar continents in size. So you basically get in three continents for the most part, unless, of course, you get this example where it's like more like two continents and islands. But it's a really cool map. And you can traverse these continents because you can see it's connected shallow waters everywhere. So you don't need to wait for to get the caravel. The splintered fractal map, I never understood what that meant exactly. So it's a highly random map, but it will often form thin, snaky continents and islands. Okay. So looking at this example, I mean, it is kind of snaky, right? So it's connected like this. I mean, you can have like one tile separating, perfect for the canal, right? So if you canal fan, this is the map for you. But I mean, you get other continents here, and I mean, are they snaky? Not really. This one here at the bottom, yeah, this one is like a Pangea. It's basically, well, no, there are some islands, but it's a Pangea. It's connected through like uh, straits and thin parts of land. I mean, there's always like an almost in like inland lake or sea. This map is also looks like a lot of fun, but it's probably hard to traverse with a lot of tundra there in the north and south. And this bottom map, that's the definition of snaky, right? So there's a long ass island here. There's a long island at the bottom in the corner here. And the continent itself is a Pangea. Look how it's connected. It's connected through these tiny like bridges, land bridges, right? Here and here. There's a strait here, just really narrow. There's another land bridge over here, bunch of peninsulas, if you will, right? So it's kind of cool. This map, I really like this type of map. Now, continents, few large land masses. What is few large land masses? It's basically two for the most part. And then you might get an island or two. Very straightforward. This one's where you can't traverse from one continent to another. You can't traverse the oceans without a caravel. So that is something that, you know, to consider when you pick this map, that you're gonna have to discover and research the shipbuilding technology. Not shipbuilding, cartography technology. I apologize for that. I don't want to confuse anybody. I think Terra is pretty straightforward, right? Continents map, where the all major civs start on the largest continent. This is our Maori choice for many players, but it's two continents. It's two continents, some islands as well. So it's I feel like it's different from the continents map in the sense of like there are definitely more islands on the new continent or around the new continent. Oh, maybe even the major continent. Usually the major civs spawn on the left, and the right side continent is empty or full of city states. The next set is fractal type. So it's unpredictable map that can result in one of many land masses. So it's similar to splintered fractal in the sense of unpredictability, but it is not as crazily broken down, right? So if you look at splintered map, right, it's all like full of water. The continents are really splintered, literally dissected by the bodies of water, and there are a lot of islands. Whereas fractal is more like continents or even Pangea, right? This is just one continent connected through peninsulas and land bridges with one island. This one has three continents, one large one and two smaller ones, I would call them. There is another one large Pangea type continent with a couple of small islands. Pretty cool. And this one is also Pangea, but look how snaky this one is, right? It has like land bridges almost connecting these continents. I think Splintered Fractal are really cool maps. Splintered for like water type of map, whereas Fractal is more like for the Pangea continents type of setup. Speaking of Pangea, pretty straightforward. One piece of land, right? With some islands. Surrounding islands, I mean, where do we see islands in this example? I mean, there's like one, it's not an island actually, it's a peninsula. There's tiny little tundra island, that's it. So don't expect too many islands. I mean, this is the only example out of four. One out of four, right? Comes up with like a giant island and another smaller one. The other three examples don't have any islands basically, so forget it. Pangea is just a one chunk of land. Pretty straightforward. So now we're moving towards water type maps, right? Like geared towards naval civs, or if you want to play it, a water type map, like small continents. I wouldn't even call this map continents. These are like giant islands to me, at least. Because first of all, you can traverse them, right? It's all shallow water. There is no ocean separating them. So I mean, to me, this would be like a Archipelago XL type of thing, you know, where you can actually play a really cool naval game. England, Phoenicia, Norway, um, those type of civs. Indonesia even, because you do have islands here, plenty of islands for Indonesia to settle. Now, the island plate seems very, very, very similar to the small continents. I mean, look at this. I mean, we're looking, the top two are the small continents, the bottom two are island plates. So island plates definitely have more water. It's almost like they raised the sea level, right, to get the island plates. But these are large islands, large islands. I mean, in this case, at the bottom here, we have this giant island, very snaky, and another giant island with a bunch of other ones. Whereas this example has a bunch of separate islands, one, two, three, four, five. Same goes for this one, for example. It's another snaky giant island. One, two, it only has three big islands, for example. So island plates is kind of unpredictable how many islands you get, but a lot of them are separated by deep water. Even though they're connected by shells, they can definitely traverse and circumnavigate with a galley. You don't need cartography for it. And then we get to Archipelago, which is lots of small islands. Is it so though? Right? Like, I mean, you look at this map, and this kind of reminds you of island plates we just looked at. Because look, there are giant one, two, three giant islands. It's not an archipelago, but most of the time, right, we get these type of maps. The one on the right, at the bottom here. Now, these are definitely a bunch of smaller islands. However, you can tell that there is a giant island here, the snaky type of island right here. There's a pretty big snaky island here again. And there is another giant island on this example, in this example, maybe even two. So archipelago is like, it's not, you would expect to get a lot of small islands, but you really don't. I guess for settling purposes, they kind of had to input the parameters to generate at least a couple of giant islands, relatively giant islands. And then the last map I wanted to look at was the Wetlands. It's a continents map flooded with rivers and marsh, and so it's really good for like Khmer or Vietnam, right? Even India. And you can tell that this is a continent's map, but the continents are connected with shallow water, right? So you don't need cartography in this case either. You can circumnavigate the globe with the galley if you get lucky. You can tell that from this example, the bottom two have two large continents with some islands, whereas the top two, this one, top left, has four giant islands, or if you want to call them small continents. Pretty cool, actually. So I wonder if you make wetlands less wet in the settings. This is a pretty cool map to play for any civ. You can just adjust the climate and the way it's generated. I don't know if it generates, I mean, I generated four maps, right, for this type of map. And I mean, it looks to me this is pretty cool. But yeah, hopefully this gave you an idea of, how the maps look for different type visually. I have a link in the description that you can download this file as an image for your own reference. And so, appreciate you watching it. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are or what other things you wanted to find out from the game, game mechanics or anything else. And again, thank you for watching. I appreciate it, guys, and I'll see you next time.